Good evening, everyone. This is Vera Sadler with Tuesday Talk Live, and we're back for an intriguing session. And I am your host of the program from VLS Coaching Services and Women of Life Ministries. And I am excited to be here again with my guest, Miss Natasha Fuller. She is the co founder of A Nation of Hope. And I'm so excited to have you here with me this morning or this evening. I'm sorry, this evening, so that we can discuss A Nation of Hope and its ministry. And the reason why your ministry is such a blessing to me and why I'm so glad to have you is because it's a love that I have as well. It is a community development reentry program, and you can tell our guests more about it. But I'm excited because I have been doing reentry. I'm going to date myself now for over 30 years. I started when I was 21. I had an older lady in my church take me and start doing evangelism ministry with me once. And when I went to do prison ministry, I just fell in love with it. And my husband always laughs at me and said, "Girl, you one of the few people I know that love to go." And I always tell him, as long as I can come out, I'm good as long as I can come out. So, Miss Natasha, introduce yourself to our guests, and then we'll just hop into a conversation about A Nation of Hope.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me and for the invitation. I always enjoy having a shared space of passions when it comes to community development. So, as you stated, I am Natasha Fuller, one of the co-founders of A Nation of Hope, which actually implemented and started back in 2013. It's a vision that myself, as well as the other co-founder, Michael Fuller, decided that it was just time to bring it to pass, put some legalities to it, make it official. This past October, actually October 2022, time is flying. So, but yeah, we've been doing this ministry for quite some time, and something that apparently chose me. I did not choose it.
That's a great way to say it, because I think sometimes we look at things and we go into different areas, and I love the way you say it chose me, because I guess I could say the same thing. The love for it wasn't that I was like, oh, I just want to go to prisons. Who say Nobody just really says that, right? And
Right.
nobody, I don't think you hear a lot of people just outright say, I just want to work with that population. I don't hear it often, but when you begin to do the work,
Yes.
it grabs you.
Yeah. It does. It snatches your heart.
Hmm.
And I like how you say it grabs you. For me, it definitely snatched my heart. And I did not know that this was going to turn into a ministry in which the Lord has blessed me and my husband with, and it started since high school. I did not know.
Wow.
I've always had a heart for the underdog, the person that people ostracized in the community. I didn't care if it was youth, people in prison, homeless population. It didn't matter to me. I just did not like what I saw growing up, how people would just cast aside individuals and count them out. And I always had this mindset of how dare them, you know.
Hmm.
They don't realize they're just one paycheck away of being that person, or one
Oh
instance
man.
away of being that person, or one circumstance of being that person. Because I myself have had lived experiences that has kept me, quite frankly, humble.
And I can attest to that. I've been there, and sometimes people look at where you have been blessed to be now,
Mhm.
and don't understand that old saying and that old adage, until you've walked in my shoes.
Yeah.
They don't understand the road you've actually had to travel, where you've had to walk to be where you are now. And so I too have this. I don't like to see anybody to marginalize anybody being taken advantage of, being bullied, being hurt. And people always like, well, you're only this tall. It doesn't matter in size. It's your
Yeah.
heart, and
Absolutely.
it's your drive and your passion to see people do better. And I was doing a talk the other week, and I was trying to describe to people my heart and passion to see people just do better and grab hold to what God has said is really for them.
Yeah.
And I can sense that with what you're saying. So tell us a little bit about Nation, not a little bit, but you just tell us about Nation of Hope
Yeah.
and really how you got started, and just tell the people listening about Nation of Hope, because like I said, we don't hear enough about these types of ministries. I remember, and I'm gonna let you tell it, but I remember when I came to Texas, I was so discouraged because that's all I've done.
Yeah.
My drive. When I worked in New York, part of one of my actual paid jobs was working in community development, transitional, from prison to community, and
Yeah.
I loved it. And the people there, like, oh, Miss Vera, we're sorry you're leaving. It was
Yeah.
that love hate. I love to leave because I have to go, but I hate to leave the people that you serve. But when you see a life so changed, I mean, it's something that
Yeah.
it does something for you. But when I came here and I tried to get involved in it, the laws too were so different than in Colorado and New York where I've done this ministry. But tell us about Nation of Hope and who you are, what it does, who it serves, and just even how you got started.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh man. So I met my husband in New York, Brooklyn to be exact. And when you say that you've done community development in places like New York and Colorado, that is something we have in common. Same here. I'm actually born and raised in Colorado.
Oh, wow.
So what's amazing about this journey is it started off. My husband and I were just going through life as usual, and realized we had some common thread of passions that we did not know it would later be intertwined. Honestly, it started with conversations of, what, you noticing all this stuff that is going on in our community. We got to do something about it, to having conversations just about politics, what we're seeing in leadership, what we're seeing in the workforce,
Mm-hmm.
what we were seeing in every block, every corner, just with families and our own personal situations with families. And we were like, this is bothersome. We got to do something. Um, so when I met my husband, I did not know, we gained a fond closeness and a friendship to where he confided a lot in me at the time, of course, of saying, hey, listen, I served almost 16 years in prison collectively and been out for a number of years now. And, I just want to do something, right?
Right.
So in the process of that, I said, I come from the other side. I grew up in church. I grew up in, I didn't grow up in a real bad environment, bad community per se. Even though growing up, there was a lot of violence that was gang related at the time. And I remember going one summer to 4 funerals for friends that I
Wow.
knew in one summer as a teenager. And that's where the advocacy and the passion stemmed and started for me. Well, by the time I met Michael, it was like, something sparked again where I said, you know what? I think we need to really talk about what this looks like and what it is. At the time in 2013, we didn't know what that would look like. So we just really started any area of need, any
I
area.
apologize.
That's okay. Any area.
Continue, please.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Any area of need that we would see that someone had, they needed food, clothes,
Hmm.
a place to stay. We was going in our own pockets and saying, listen, let's help them. A lot of times we were referring individuals to organizations, and unfortunately, in a very disappointing way, those organizations would either turn them away or put them on a wait list. And so I couldn't understand that. I just really could not wrap my mind around it. Um, my profession, I was working for a lot of those agencies,
Hmm.
from legal or government entities to nonprofit organizations. I was working in those fields and environments. So I'm grateful because I like to look at it as it was really like God's way of putting me in a classroom to understand what was happening in the disparities of the community.
Wow.
And so at this point, I'm learning in one side, and then the other side, my passion is being reignited. So we decided, you know what? We need to go on and make this thing official. So we moved from New York, and we decided to come to Texas. And so after coming to Texas, at the time we're a family of six. You know, we have our own responsibilities. We have kids we're taking care of. We're working. We're doing our own thing, and you know, it just was like tugging at my heart. You know, and my husband was like, "We got to do something." It was tugging at his heart as well too, and so that's when in October 2022 we decided to form it. Now, what is a Nation of Hope? It is literally the mission of helping the forgotten. That is what we
Awesome.
are about.
Awesome.
And that's not just reentry in the form of criminal justice, it's also reentry in the form of those who are unhoused and homeless. A lot of those populations and individuals, they want change, they want to do change, but they don't know how to change. And so, one of the things that we typically really pride ourselves on is our approach is a little unorthodox, if I could use a word, and is different from the normalcy of a lot of community-based organizations who say, oh, you're unhoused or homeless, let's give you a home. Oh, you are re-entering back into the community, but we need to make sure that you're planted with food, right? Clothes,
Mm-hmm.
all of the things that we need. But the piece that is missing is the mental health aspect.
Yes.
So deep down in us, we focus and asphyxiate the mindset of saying our compass is really Romans 12, verse 2, and that is the renewing of people's minds. And so I said, okay. And that's something that just resonated in me, stayed in me, and said, that's how we need to use that as a moral compass and an
Mm-hmm.
ethical compass for our organization, to keep in mind that no matter what program we're offering, no matter what we are providing as far as a service to other partners in the community, we got to keep in mind the minds. So we have a program called Reentry 180. Reentry 180 is the concept that it's not, again, just about justice or people who've been exposed to the justice system or justice involved or impacted. It's also those who are learning how to re-enter
Mm-hmm.
into the cusp of society and the community, no matter what traumatic experience they may have endured. So that might be, and by definition, again, we don't know where God is going to take us with this, but by definition, that could mean women who come from domestic violence, okay,
Mm-hmm.
who come from domestic violence, um, children who've been displaced from their families. We don't know where God is going to take this, but reentry is reentry. And a lot of times people label that and coin that to the criminal justice system,
Yes.
but they really forget that, such as myself, I was homeless with my 4 kids at one point before meeting my husband. And I had to learn how to readjust re-entering as a single mother at the time. That was very tough for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and that's just one example. So that is what we really pride ourselves in, by the grace that we're under. And that's where we are envisioning on taking this, not just in the state of Texas, but abroad. We want a presence in all 50 states, and we know it's going to come in due time. But the progress that is happening right now, I tell you, I am so grateful of the amount of outreach we're getting from people who understand our mission and cause and say, what can we do to help?
Wow. So, excuse me. You have said a mouthful, and it's wonderful. And I love, first of all, I'll start where you just said the part about reentry. I love how you described it, the reentry 180, because lots of times people they mistakenly say to people, "You need to do a 360." No, because 360 ends you back up where you were before. And I think it's just, people just say it unknowingly. They
Yeah.
use, but I love the reentry 180. And then I really love how you're telling our guests, our listeners, and anyone that's going to hear this after the fact that your program is not just coined, and you brought that out so clear, Miss Natasha, about how individuals just think reentry is about we leave from prison to community. That's just one segment of it. But we have so many people, and I myself, I've dealt with the individuals that, so I have an organization as well that is not as active here, but I do it in, so I have my women's ministry, I have my coaching, but I also have that other part that is for the marginalized, the things and what I teach related to transition to community and helping. It's called Project Rare, which stands for Relief, Answers, Restoration, and Education, which is the same thing. We can't just box people into one category and think that, but it's how do we get people from to become self-sustainable,
Yes.
right? And to be able to get back into community. And one of the things, my biggest dream was family reunification
Yeah.
and the mindset. You talked about that, the mindset, because
Hmm.
when I started dealing with families and people in trauma, it was the mental health. It was how we think, how we need to reframe our thinking, which thus launched my coaching as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
But when you were saying how, you have someone who has been displaced,
Hmm.
but now have to, the placement. So we find that when we deal with people that are incarcerated,
Yeah.
the formerly incarcerated, we find that with family members, we find that with, women that have to pick up and move, and here you have your home, you've had your home with your children, but now you no longer have a home and you have to go stay somewhere else. But
Yeah.
how do we help you adjust to that, and that resettling? But it's not just them that's affected, it's their children as well. And all of this is such a big picture
It
that
is.
many people sitting at home
Hmm.
don't realize what's happening. And then we're throwing rocks at glass, at people, saying, oh,
Hmm.
they're there because they want to be. Well, there are people that are homeless because of one medical catastrophe that has wiped
Absolutely.
out their savings and their finances and stuff, or one trauma or one issue. It's not because they want to be, it's because they got caught up in this cycle. And you were talking about how agencies are there to support and to help.
Yes.
But if I go and we have those that are using the system, they
Yeah.
don't really need it. So those that do need it go to get it, but the funds are dried up because those here that don't really need it, but they heard there's funds and they go use the system. And then the ones who really need it can't get the help. Then they're
Absolutely.
left homeless, they're left without. So they need agencies like yourself and people to come alongside to help them navigate, help them figure out what's
Exactly.
the course of action and how to really become self-sustainable.
Yeah.
What you do, I can hear it. What you do is you're just teaching people. You're not teaching people, giving them a fish. You're teaching them how to fish. You're teaching them how, now that you fish, what do you do with it?
Exactly. Exactly. Well said. And that's exactly our approach, because we're not here to, and I say this, I'm gonna say this statement and I'm gonna explain why. We're not here to replace current organizations that exist. We're here to complement them.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say that is because I cannot tell you the countless times that we went and done community engagement and outreach, trying to employ, in a sense, a partnership with organizations. And their immediate fear is, you're coming in to replace our current program. No, we're not. We're not here to replace what you currently have. Number one, if you're feeling that way, that means you're questioning your ability and your organization's deliverables anyway. That has nothing to do
Right.
with us. But we're here to complement what works for your organization and the population that you serve, right? We know we all need each other. We're a body. So
Mm-hmm.
you might
Mm-hmm.
have a certain strength in your organization, and we may have a certain strength that maybe you're not tapping into, that when we come together and complement it, then we are able to influence change. It's hard to influence change when it's just a one man band. You can't hear a beautiful melody with just one man playing.
Oh, say
And
that.
that's the same thing that when it comes to doing business and collaboration and teamwork and all these things that we hear about from the workplace to the ministry and everywhere else. But unfortunately, the world is the world and the reality is the reality. You are going to have some organizations that exist for ulterior motives and not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily for the people, right? So what we're looking for is partnerships that are for the people, who are not afraid. Executives will roll up their sleeves, and all of us will get down into the I hate to say it this way, but I have to keep it real, just get in the gutter and in the weeds
Yes.
and in the
Yes.
trenches of what is required in order to help people lift up and rise up. And we can't define what that means to those we serve. And you're absolutely correct. Those that we serve, it's about you taking ownership, sir. You taking ownership,
Mm-hmm.
ma'am, of what your life is going to look like. I'm sorry that you've been lied to, that someone else has controlled your own life or you've allowed them to control your own life. But I'm here to tell you that this is your life and you have a chance. While you're above ground, this is your
That's it.
opportunity. This is your opportunity to make a change. If you're still stuck in the past, still battling with your trauma, then we incorporate trauma informed care. Okay, let's sit down. Let's talk about that. What does that mean? So right now it's really the passion and the stemming of a nation of hope. It's not about me or the other co-founder. We're a piece of the puzzle because we too have lived experiences, but it's about the veterans. It's about
Mm-hmm.
displaced homemakers and widows and all of us and all of our stories, because all of our stories really is his story.
Mm-hmm.
Our job is just really to just tell the story and the
Mm-hmm.
victorious side of that story, to give people inspiration and again hope.
Oh, yes. And, so I'm reading this book. Actually, it's a book with other colleagues, but it's called True North.
Mm.
Um, but one of the things when it made me think of this book because you just talked about the story. And if we could take our stories, like you're saying, we all have life stories, right?
Yes.
And if we take those crucibles inside this book, it tells life stories of people who've gone through horrendous crucibles, horrendous things, or they've gone through certain things in life that has
Yeah.
reshaped.
Yes.
They may have found themselves in places, but it was the launch pad
Hmm.
for where they wanted to go, for your husband, for
Yes.
yourself, for
Yeah.
myself. And it caused us to say, wait a minute, this can be something different. And so the book basically tells what do you do with that crucible? And
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is how do we get people that you're serving individuals, different situations, veterans, mothers. I thought about grandmothers who are taking care of children
Yes.
because of the parents aren't, and not necessarily that was their choice,
Yes.
but it was thrust upon them because this is a systemic issue we have in some of our communities, right?
Yes.
But what do we do with that then? And
Hmm.
do we become bitter? Do we ignore that it's there? So what I'm hearing in my head right now, man, this is so good. What I'm hearing in my head right now is, do we press this down? Because one of the things he said, if you cover it up like it's not there,
Hmm.
then it buries you
Yeah.
because you haven't dealt with it. But if you deal with it, like your husband, I heard you in the beginning say your husband said, "Look, this was my life." But
Yeah.
because he knew what his life, his past had been, he knew and where he was then now, he wanted to see other people. He turned that around. And he
Yes.
was so if you face where you were or what has happened to you, your crucible, you do something great with it. But if you cover it up like it was never there, you can't you can't do anything with it. So we, many people are
Yeah.
trying to get others to realize,
Yeah.
don't ignore your crucible, use it as something beneficial. So that's that reentry 180, right? That's
Yeah.
a nation of hope, and you said it's his story, because then we turn it around not to be about us. We turn around and say, okay, God, what are you saying? What are
Absolutely.
you teaching me? Where am I supposed to go with this? How do I pick myself up and dust off from this? And
Yeah.
man, I'm so excited about what you're doing. And the more you talk, that I reminded me of something I used to do in New York. We used to do these community, you said community engagement, but we used to do these events where you used to bring just stakeholders, community stakeholders together
Yeah.
at a 1 day event, and all the people in the certain, the community would come together and see all the resources available to them,
Yeah.
because they would think, and I don't know if I've attended anything like that here.
I think they exist. I definitely have been to some events that, I have to give Texas some credit. Texas is real big on, of course, family is one of those biggest things that they have here. And so health fairs are popular here. And it's just a matter of finding where they are.
Mhm.
Certain churches do a lot of community events, especially with us transitioning in the summer and all of this stuff is going on. I just feel like we can do a lot more.
More, yes.
Because of my experience as well as your experience, you can probably attest. I just want to see more because of my experience in Virginia and New York and Colorado, and
Mhm.
understanding that there's other states that understand the power of collaboration.
Yes.
There's certain states that still struggle with the silo syndrome. And
Mhm.
so we're here again. I guess it might require disrupting the norm. I don't know.
Oh, what a wonderful term.
It's not even our intention, to be honest. It's not our intention. It's our passion that fuels us, because we have people out here. We don't care your background, your beliefs, and all this stuff. You're a person, and we have people out here that don't know how to deal with their emotions. That is why you have so much of the horrible stories going on in the
Mhm.
news. That's why
Mhm.
you yourself and all of us may witness something in the community, from the grocery store to driving down the street or whatever the case may be. We as a human race have a challenge with dealing with emotions. And
Coping skills are
that's
bad.
that's truly, yeah, that's truly a mental health proponent.
Mhm.
Um, Quite honestly, I'm frustrated at the fact that we treat mental health like it's a one-off disease that only impacts a certain percentage of the population. But if people really understood the definition of a lot of the mental health ailments,
Mhm.
all of us have touched at least one part of
One.
the spectrum if you really understood what mental health really is. But people tend to forget that. Our bodies and organs could get sick, but our brain can't. How does that work? And so we're here to help, again, educate and inform in ways that the people can understand it, the people can receive it. Yeah, we might have some evidence-based practices thrown in there, but it's mindfulness at its best, where they take ownership of understanding their
Mhm.
makeup, because nobody can understand or explain that makeup but them.
Right, right,
People
right.
would just take the time to listen to the
Mhm.
stories, going back to the book that you referenced. Take the time to get out of their selves and their own judgment and listen to the stories of other demographics and other people who are not like you. You will be amazed by what really goes on in this world and why people do a lot of what they
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
I also have to tell community organizers and such all the time, listen, we're not advocates for crime. Please do not get that misconstrued. We're not here to say,
Mm-mm.
oh, well, they commit a crime, let's just give them a hug. And, no, they're,
Exactly.
we're
People
not.
think that that's what we do as when we work with the formerly incarcerated or the incarcerated population. We're not saying, "Atta girl, you or atta boy, you're okay with what you
Yeah,
did." That's
yeah,
not what we
yeah.
do.
No, because what we have to realize is this: we live in the community, we live in this world. So if you turn a blind eye to the fact that, for example, on average, I had read that over 76,000 inmates are released back into the community in a given year in the state of Texas. Okay. So what do? Do we just turn a blind eye and act like, okay, they go figure it out? What do you mean they go figure it out? These are
Exactly.
individuals that are walking around on the streets just like we are. So we can't turn a blind eye. We can't ignore the fact of their existence just because, again, of the poor, horrible choices that they have made that may have landed them into incarceration. Or, and then there's cases, of course, of the innocent who landed into
And the
incarceration.
trauma.
Right. It can be. But again, we're not here to judge one way or another. Who we are after is individuals that say, listen, the way my life had been going did not work.
Mm-hmm.
I have got to get on a better foot for myself and turn my life around. It's not us telling them you need to turn your life around. The world does that enough. And look at where it's landing us. It still is almost like a place of rebellion in a sense, just like with our children. You raise kids, you tell them you need to do your homework. What are they going to do? Yeah, okay, Ma, I'll get to it. Yeah, I know I got to do my homework, but what do? Have a little bit of rebellion and they go and sneak off and maybe hide or delay. That's the same thing as human beings and adults that we have a tendency of doing. So instead of us saying you should do this, it's more of, what is it that you desire for yourself in your life and why? Right. And those are tough conversations that, again, have to happen, in our opinion. But you will be amazed as the answers that you get as a result of those types of probing questions that oftentimes we tend to ask. And it's pretty shocking because I've had some encounters with some where they would say, I like doing what I do. I think
I've
it's
heard
a
that before.
thrill. Yeah. I think it's a thrill being in this kind of relationship because I like how we make up afterwards. Yeah, he might hit me upside my head, but I actually like it, and so then it's the conversation. Well, why? Why do you like that? You know? But those conversations are tough, but that's something. I'm one of those weird people. I actually enjoy having those conversations because it opens my mind up to learn more about other people.
I wouldn't call you weird, Natasha, because I have those conversations with individuals because I think if we don't have those, we can't do the work we do. We
Yeah.
can't continue to understand and help. And like you said, we're not telling people do this, do that. We're trying to help navigate and
Yes.
change the 360 attitude to the 180.
Yes.
I teach anger management in facilities. I've taught it to the homeless, to those who I'll teach it to anybody who really wants to be, because I'm certified to teach it. But my
Yeah.
approach is I take it from a stance that we all have dealt with anger, and people say, "Oh, I don't need anger management." Listen, we all deal with it. We all get riled up because I used to have a temper, right? And
Yeah.
so when I tell them how, and they look at me, they always say, "You, Miss Vera." Yes, yes, yes. I can tell you some episodes.
Yeah.
But when you teach people to think critically, I think that's
Yes.
the biggest thing, that a lot of people haven't been taught to think critically, or
Yes.
they haven't even thought it was okay to think critically. They've just been told what to do, how to do. They've been led somewhere, or they've followed bad instruction. But when
Yes.
you teach people to think critically about their decisions, okay,
Yes.
so what does this decision? And even when we're talking about the population that is incarcerated, or those that maybe some people are choosing to be homeless because they don't want to be responsible. Everybody that's homeless is not had fell on bad luck, but those who are making those bad choices, choose trying to talk to them about the critical thinking about, but where's your decision leading you?
Yeah.
So I think those conversations are really, really important when we get people to start thinking not just in the here and now.
Yes.
You did this thing in the here and now, you're doing this in the here and now, but
Yes.
long term,
Yes.
What is the effect? And long term, I had a young guy one time in New York that told me that his robbing and his stealing didn't hurt anyone but himself
Mm.
because he was the only one that ended up, in lockup. And I thought, but
Hmm.
what about the person you stole from? What about their family that was missing either the income or,
Mm-hmm.
the money from what they were able, because you stole their product so they couldn't sell it. So that, I had to break down the downstream
Mm-hmm.
to him and your family then, who are receiving phone calls, who have to go to court, who have to put money on your books. When you begin to get people to critically think again
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that downstream. So I
Yeah.
think those conversations are crucial. And hopefully we can help people then say, hmm, maybe I do need to do something different. And then I think it's not always, and you can speak to this, once you get them to think critically, it's also how do we help them get to make another choice? Because some people for the longest have been doing something so long, so wrong, or
Right.
one way, they don't know where to turn. Then you said that in the beginning, you said, now let's help them do something different.
Yeah, and that's something different really stems from them, and indeed you're right in what you're saying, and I love this because one of the things that we refuse to do as a nation of hope is to set that concourse for that person. They have to be willing. The key word is willing.
Mm-hmm.
So we might plant that seed, like that great example of what you had to do in coaching someone to understand you are hurting other people. But what about who you took the product from and them having to, provide for their family? You took a product where now they got to account for that loss. The
Mm-hmm.
thing about it is that even with that example that you reminded me of is if I was sitting and speaking with that individual, it immediately takes my mind to where did his disassociated behavior come from when it comes
Oh,
to
yes.
people? What was his trauma? Why do you disassociate and disconnect to another, with another human being? And I
Mm-hmm.
bet you it comes from the household and the upbringing of that individual. Somehow, some way, he disassociated and lost that connection of another existence of a human being, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore saw it the way that he saw it. But even in that, people don't understand that's a coping mechanism even within himself, to disassociate the emotion of, oh, I hurt someone, right? So little
Yes.
basic things like that, it just piques my interest. But again, it goes back to the fact of you got to be willing to have that conversation. And a lot of people they run from what they feel is very confrontational, and sometimes it can be confrontational depending upon what is discussed, right? Trauma is not an easy thing to talk about, nor is it something that you want to be vulnerable and open up to, a stranger or a random person. And that's why relationship management is very important to us as well, that we
Mm-hmm.
have to build that trust up. But part of building that trust up is people will sense and know that you care. And I'm going to share something that one time Michael said that was very profound to me just the other day when we gave a presentation. He said, we don't have to learn how to study people. Those of us who've been incarcerated, we have to learn how to study people in order to survive. So it's
Mm.
learned behavior that we have to do. So when they were sitting in cells or sitting in open areas, they had to sit and really analyze and study people by the way they moved, by the way they talked, by
Yep.
the way they did not talk, by the way they sat, by the way everything, their hand gestures and the whole nine. And something that a lot of people go to school to study, they actually learn it. So, and it blew the minds of a lot of people in the room. They were like, wow, never thought of that. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, so don't underestimate people's experiences. And, and it's one of those things where we just are at a point now where we want to, one, understand what is happening from people who lived it best,
Mm-hmm.
right? allow them to tell their own story, not us to parade the story and use it for our own capital gain, because a lot of organizations do that as well. But third, be able to take that information and say, now we know how to be better equipped as an organization to give that service, because the people have spoken and saying this is what we need, and then
Mhm.
we're able to meet that need accordingly based on the feedback that we are given. So yeah, this is great, and this well is real deep.
So, as we're talking about this, I just thought, share with our listeners, what is your biggest challenge
Okay.
and what has been your greatest um, excitement, or greatest, you know, oh, aha moment.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So the biggest challenge, people to see our vision and mission.
Hmm.
I think as a nonprofit, that is the biggest challenge for probably a lot of nonprofits,
Hmm.
to understand our mission and vision, and then to have dedicated people accordingly. You get a lot of people that are attracted to the light,
Right.
but then once they realize the magnitude, the intensity, they back up. They
The
like,
heavy lifting.
yeah, the heavy lifting, the rolling up the sleeves, the doing the work.
Hmm.
So I would say that's the biggest challenge. And right now we're looking for partnerships of like minds. We're looking for, of course, funding is always a part of that process to give back to the community, so we can operate. But I would say that's the biggest challenge. Wow, the biggest victory, if I could paraphrase, would be, oh man, I would have to say just putting the smiles on the face of the very people that we help. That is the
Hmm.
biggest victory. Seeing a mother break into tears after taking her children off the concrete floor that they didn't have nowhere else to sleep or go, and us putting them in a hotel. That is what is
Hmm.
victory
Hmm.
to me. Um, Being able to have a conversation with a homeless man who had been unseen for so long that when I acknowledged his presence, the man was so giddy, it was almost childlike that I
Hmm.
took the time to have a conversation with him. To me, those are those instances and those moments,
Hmm.
stopping a young lady from killing herself.
Mm.
Took a razor and was slicing her wrists, and I sat down and had a conversation with her and asked her why. And she said, because I lost my best friend and I don't know if I can live anymore. And I, had to really coach and talk with her and
Hmm.
say, instead of thinking of it that way, think of it as living for your friend. You know,
Hmm.
those are the victories that,
Yes.
I would have to say to answer your question.
Yes, those are such wonderful, and even the challenges are right in line, that we need collaboration and partnership, because we're not islands. We don't do this work alone, and um, getting people. And I understand that aha thrill. Hey, yay! I'm gonna come walk alongside, and then when people come alongside, they're like, "Oh, you want this from me?"
Yeah.
I've learned. I've been there. I've done it myself,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I've had to learn now, as I'm older, more mature.
Yeah.
Commit to what you're really called to do.
Yeah. Yeah, just
Commit to
because
what
it
you're
looks
really
good
called to
or
do.
smells good doesn't, if it's not for you, it's okay.
Right.
And it's not a bad thing, it's
No.
okay. But yeah, it's
But
there's
those
there's a
victories.
yeah,
Go
there's
ahead.
there's still victories. Yeah, there's still victories. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's still victories for
Yeah, no,
sure.
and I was gonna say, and then when you commit to what you're called to do, you can enjoy those. For some people, hearing the man that's giddy may seem small and simple, but for those of us, when you're called to it,
Yeah.
it does something that will help you keep pushing down the road. I
Yes.
cannot explain that feeling to
Yeah.
someone who hasn't experienced it,
Yeah.
but when you, can see that, I know I can share this. I'm sure my daughter won't mind, but I remember we used to always buy our my grandkids gift cards over the holidays, right, and put them in their stockings,
Yeah.
and just different ones. And I never remember. I mean, I won't forget that we were driving down one of the main streets here where I live, and I think I'm trying to think. We had just either came from the store or came from somewhere, and there was a homeless guy sitting out there. And we all have our views about whether they're really standing there begging for whatever or whatever. But I'll never forget. This was a day the Lord prompted us to give and to stop. We turned the car around. My grandbabies took the gift cards. Not only did they take, I think we had just came from our fast food restaurant. Not only did they take their lunch, but they also took all the gift cards, their little $10 Brahms and Dairy Queen and whatever, both of them, and handed it to him.
Oh,
Do you know
wow.
how overwhelming that is to me as a grandmother? One, it's not only, and the man, he just wept. He wept. When I
Oh,
say he
wow.
wept, he just sat on his little, it was like one of those little, 5-gallon things, and he turned it upside down and he was sitting on, but he began to weep. And I
Wow.
got back, and we prayed with him there, and I just began to weep because
Wow.
of how it affected him, but also that the heart that you're passing on a legacy. So
Yeah,
for those who are listening, do not despise small things that you do, small
that's right.
gestures that you do,
That's right.
whether it's praying for somebody, whether it's handing somebody something. It could be a $5. It could be they had $5 and $10 gift cards, and I'm sure those were meals for that man for the next several days.
Yes.
You may not be able to take everybody in your home. You may not be able to do everything. We don't know what someone's life story is that caused them to be where they are. But I thought, Lord, I'm leaving a legacy too now.
Yes.
So what
Absolutely.
you're doing also, you were saying that you have 6 children. Do you know what legacy you and your husband are leaving, that to show your children compassion, um, and not to be indifferent towards society and people, but you're showing them a legacy of a heart that is going after God's heart. That hey, how does God see people? What does God
Yeah.
think about people?
Yeah.
Man, that is so
Yeah.
wonderful.
It is very wow. Thank you for sharing even that experience. That had to do something, I'm sure, for you because as a parent, it's like, man, look at God. I'm
Hmm.
leaving that legacy to my grandkids that's been passed through to my daughter to be able to say,
Hmm.
hey, I see you, sir. Let me give you these gifts to
Hmm.
let you know everything is going to be all right. You
Hmm.
know, we can learn so much from children, and that's something that I had to learn just, raising my four. We are a combined family that have more kids, but um, yeah, legacy for sure is what we want to leave, not just with our children. Full transparency. We want, I want to make sure that before it's time for me to go home, that the impact
Hmm.
that has been laid and made, that people will always remember that they are loved and that they
Yes.
are recognized. And no matter what they may have done, no matter what they may intend to do, there's always the opportunity and the chance to really make better choices and turning their life around and being the captain outside of the captain of their own ship.
Yes.
But everything in life is a choice,
Yes.
and I, for one, have always been one of those people that say God is a gentleman. He does not
Hmm.
force himself
Hmm.
on no man, but he sure will show up and let you know he's there.
Yes.
You have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to those subtle signs and not ignore them, because that right there is this saving grace. That is moments of opportunity for you to get it right,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I'm honored to be one of the co-founders of A Nation of Hope, um, a title in which was given and inspired and given to me to run with not something that I created. I give all credit due to the Lord above. I just feel like it's time. Businesses are closing like
Mm-hmm.
90 going west, including not non-profits, and I
Mm-hmm.
just heard news of some closing yesterday. And it saddens me, but it also tells me, the time is now. And we
Yes.
have got to get out here and let people know that with hope, man, you can make it.
Mm-hmm.
You can make it out
Mm-hmm.
here. I don't care how hard it is. I don't care how difficult it is. And to anyone who's listening to this and hearing the words come out of my mouth, I pray that each and every one of you look within inside yourself and be honest with yourself.
Yes.
Recognize your own strengths. Recognize where your shortcomings are. And don't be afraid to confide in someone who you can trust
Mm-hmm.
to release whatever it is that has been holding you back from being great. Do not be afraid to release that, because when you hold it in, as Miss Vera mentioned earlier in our conversation, not only is it suppressed and it holds you bound, but it also does a disservice to us in the community who need you,
Oh, yes. Yes.
because
Yes.
your gifts are needed,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it may be. And it's time for us to rise up in our gifts and in our call and in our mission,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that may be. And it's time for us to break our own chains of bondage, whatever that may be for you. So I thank you for this platform, Miss Vera.
Oh, I am so grateful to have you on, and hopefully we can get Mr. Michael to come on one day and tell a little bit of his story. So many, you
Sure.
know how many probably young men, young women need to hear from him and hear truth and hear transparency from
Yeah.
him. So I would love for him to come on and share with us just a little bit of his story. And for those who have been listening, I've been talking with Miss Natasha Fuller of a nationofhope.org, and I put her website on there because I want individuals listening, because I'm sure someone is probably saying, well, how do I reach out? I have a family member. I have a friend. I have a coworker's son. We know
Sure.
we've all been places where somebody will say, I need. Do you
Yes.
know? So I wanted them to have your website, because I want them to be able to reach out to contact you and
Yes.
Mr. Michael and say, get the help. I mean, and I do understand. Look, when we reach out, there's also going to be where you can refer them, or you can help them, you can direct them. I love the things you've talked about: trauma informed care, mental health approach, all these things that lead up to an entire package, that you're not looking at a person and you're putting them in just one little area, but you're saying you're a holistic person that
Yes.
needs to be addressed. And
Yeah.
the Nation of Hope is here to tell you that life is not hopeless. Life is not without, we understand there's issues,
Yeah.
concerns, there's areas that we want to address, but life is not without hope. So
Absolutely.
any final words? I mean, you just gave a great closing thing to wrap this up, but I'm just so excited about the work that you do, and so thankful that God put it on your husband and your heart to start this, and that you obeyed, because so many people are here. And I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday about, we have a lot of times we have the passion, but
Yeah.
we're so busy trying to make it perfect before we'll launch. It
Yep.
doesn't always have to all be in place. We need to go forward and do,
No.
and then let it line up,
Yes,
let it
thank
come
you for
together.
saying that. Thank you for saying that to the listeners, because there is never a perfect time. And
Mhm.
who taught me best on that was Michael, my husband. He said, because I was one of those people, like, we got to have all the ducks in a row first. We got to have the money available in the bank account. We got to have this, we got to have that. But let me tell you something. When the passion is there and the will to do it, and you putting in forth the good fruit to
Mhm.
carry out what you need to do, everything will come in its due time.
Yes.
right on time, like perfection. And only God can orchestrate that. You don't know where your resources are going to come from. You
Mhm.
don't know when you're going to get that phone call. You don't know when you're going to get the check in the mail to help pay for or fund whatever it is that you were wanting to do. You will never know when that person will show up, a volunteer to show up and say, hey, I'm here to help, whatever it may be. But yes, thank you for, again, having this platform, because it's informative, it's educational, and you have given us the opportunity and the shot to share about a nation of hope. And I believe Michael would love to be on the show. We love our brothers in the community. We love the
Yes.
men in the community. We want to see more men rise up. You will notice that our board of directors and all our volunteers are women. The only male is Michael. And we want more men to come
Mhm.
forth. But again, it's all about stepping out there and just believing in yourself and what you can offer.
Yes.
And let's do it.
Yes, let's do it. So, for those who've been listening, hey, it's been a great night sharing with Miss Natasha Fuller of anationofhope.org. Her website is there for you to see. And if anybody needs information, you need help, you need resources, please do not shy away from reaching out and connecting with her. Again, I'm Vera Sadler. I am your host of Tuesday Talk Live and VLS Coaching Services. And if you need any help, for coaching services, please reach out to me. There is my contact information. You can reach out to us at coaching at wol-ministries.org, or the number that is scrolling across the screen. And we will see you again next week on Tuesday